Thank you for rejoining our next panel, Youth Activists, the Leaders Tackling Climate Change. In recent years, the fashion industry's collective response to climate change has been accelerated with more stakeholders than ever known, prioritizing environmentally sustainable methods. Much of this progress can be credited to the dedicated activism of youth leaders who have been driving global climate action. Joined with me, I have Claudia Rinke, who is the author and screenwriter of the documentary Now. Together with photographer Jim Rakete, Claudia has been following young climate activists from their protest in Berlin to Washington to the United Nations in New York. Now is supposed to be in cinemas in late summer. Also here today is climate activist Clara from Fridays for Future Germany. Welcome. Today our conversation will bring attention to the progress that young leaders have had in supporting the advancement of SDG 13, climate action. But first, let's watch a preview of Now.
You only talk about moving forward with the same bad ideas that got us into this mess.
Why things were still going downhill even though we had now the Paris Agreement.
I can't reduce my personal footprint to this amount. And that was the point when I realized it's a dead end.
We can't wait until Greta is old enough to sit in the parliament.
This is our time.
We try to live the world already we want to create.
We have all of these solutions, we only have to implement them.
Police are moving in, you don't want conflict with them, you don't want conflict with anyone, you're non-violent, but you're in conflict because they're going to arrest you. That's really tough for all of us.
It's not the time for more debates, it's a time for more decisions.
We share a common goal. We want a future. Is that too much to ask for?
What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it?
Claudia, impressive piece of work. You're joining us now from your quarantine in Berlin, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes. That's right. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Of course, we would like to know, as you were creating the documentary Now, what were some examples you witnessed of the ways in which youth are tackling the climate crisis?
From what I observed, youth activists around the world, they're following different routes and found ways in accordance with their personal interests, so to speak. Like some are planting trees, others are suing their governments, and as Fridays for Future is doing, they are protesting on the streets.
Am I right, or if I'm mistaken? I assume the both of you haven't met before, but you knew about each other before? Is that a question in general that I would like to ask here?
No, we haven't met personally, not yet.
But were you able just to follow a bit what Clara's been doing?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes,
she knows who you are. We're just about to find out, because Clara, from your experience on the front lines of the Fridays for Future movement, do you believe we are making progress on climate change, and how has the fashion industry impacted this?
Well, concerning fashion, I don't think we have made an impact at all, or at least there has been no progress. Yes, marketing strategies have changed. Now, basically, every piece of clothing has a sign saying biodegradable or recyclable, but it's not really the case, is it? I mean, big fast fashion brands have even contacted me and asked me to promote their products as sustainable. Of course, they're not. We need to realize that we can never change the fashion industry by just begging them to do so, because their sole business concept is exploiting the planet and our people and making profit off of it. And this business model is within a framework in our society, legislative framework, which is that climate-friendly behavior and people-friendly behavior is financially not profitable, and the opposite is financially profitable. And as long as we do not change that, nothing will ever fundamentally change in the fashion industry.
Okay. Some strong words about that. I mean, Claudia, in your documentary, you note how the climate action movement really only started to gain traction in recent years. Why do you think we are starting to see such progress now, and how can we continue to ensure its growth?
Well, humankind has known about climate change at least since the late 80s. But one reason why now the young generation is becoming more and more forceful, so to speak, in their efforts to protest, the young generation, which is now in their early years, that this is the first generation which can be very that their lives will be severely affected by climate change. Whereas my generation, which is more the parental generation to this young generation, we can still, or we could still say, well, if we are lucky, we can just spend our lives without being too severely affected. I guess that's actually the main reason. That's the main reason why we are now seeing protests around the world.
And another question for that matter, but do you see any way of making sure that there's nothing like a fatigue happening? Because sometimes it really happens. I mean, generations before have been always demonstrating. After a while, they're becoming more comfortable. How do you see it for this generation? What can be prevented in order not to be fatigued? Because that's a cause that's going to be important, for the next 100 years and beyond that. So this shouldn't be finished.
I don't think we will see a fatigue in the way that the movement will come to a halt. I mean, mental health issues are of course a strong issue for the activists, and they're also addressing that in our film. But at the same time, they are aware to stop, because if they stop, who will then act on their behalf? I don't think
Claudia, unfortunately, the connection isn't really that stable, so you're breaking up a bit. I hope that we're just going to be able just to fix that, for that matter. Now, that just sounded like a phone call on the CNETs, which you probably don't remember because you were too young for that matter.
Possible that I answer to Claudia's statements?
Please, go for it.
I would like to challenge this myth that we, as the young generation, will be the only ones affected by the climate crisis. The climate crisis isn't some scenario of the future. It's here. It's right now. We see it in droughts, in wildfires, in floods. We see it all across the world, especially in the global south. So people here in this time are affected. And yes, people that are 20 years old are affected and will be affected. People that are 3 years old will be affected. But people that are 65 years old are also affected by extreme heats and floods, by losing their homes, their livelihoods. This is all reality. It's not something of the future.
Mm. And in general, because you're pretty much going to add it up, because the question that I was about to ask is what are the challenges you and your fellow youth activists are experiencing with respect to accelerating the climate action? I mean, we know that it's present and it's more important than ever, but with all this, what you achieved already, is there something that is still kind of an issue, or things that have been added to the challenges that you have to go through?
I mean, the climate crisis is still going on. There is barely no legislation stopping it, especially in Germany. I mean, we are one of the wealthiest countries in Europe, one of the wealthiest countries on Earth. We are extremely influential within the European Union, and yet we block laws that would stop the climate crisis from going on, from happening. Mm. So we are not taking the responsibility we have seriously, and lawmakers are not taking it seriously. I mean, first we were laughed at, and people thought we were just kids protesting on the streets. And after that stopped, then people stopped ridiculing us. Now we're good enough for people to take pictures with us. So politicians can meet up with us, smile, leave a handshake, smile again to the cameras, and then nothing happens. That's not what we want. We want climate justice, and that can only be achieved when countries come together to act upon this crisis globally.
Because earlier, because Claudia, at this point, we really have an issue with the connection, because I really ask her, what is there to do in order just to prevent a certain amount of fatigue? It's always like this. You have a huge amount of people who are fighting for something, and then some actually lose the interest. But for yourself, what is it that you practice in order just to remain for that? Because I think that you even, well, I've heard even from yourself, you even stalled your education in order just to be capable of just like fighting for that cause. I mean, isn't that something sometimes like frustrating when other people are not as much willing to sacrifice as much as you do?
People always try to individualize a movement. They always try to seek out certain people. This is the face of the movement. This is the face of change, this person or that person. But that's never how change works. There was never one person who held a speech or led a protest who then changed the world. It's always the masses. It's never an individual. So people are allowed to be fatigued. Let them be humans. Let them say, okay, I can step down for half a year, and I can step down for a while, and other people can come to the forefront. That's totally fine. We are a movement. We are millions of people. Not everyone needs to completely exploit their resources, their personal resources, because we are so big, and that is what is wonderful about this climate movement.
But you agree that at some point you need someone that you orientate yourself, because if you just feel like that's a general movement, the fear that I have for that matter is that people feel like, well, there's this movement, it's happening anyway, so I don't care. So I assume it must be kind of a burden. I mean, I think I don't know if that's what Claudia meant. We cannot ask her apparently, because she said that also some of the activists also like had to face also like some issues with themselves in that struggle, because it's very exhausting. So I understand. So coming back to the original question, wouldn't you agree that it's still very necessary to have persons like you, some persons who are allowed just to make them aware of the cause itself, but just trusting the movement itself, that cannot be enough?
No, of course not. We always try to mobilize and organize more people. But because this issue affects so many people, I mean, this issue is intertwined with racism and sexism and other sorts of inequalities. The climate crisis didn't just arise out of nowhere. Its foundations lie in inequalities that were already present. So whenever people realize that they are suffering from those inequalities, they will, at some point, realize that the climate crisis is accelerating those inequalities, that they need to fight the climate crisis. So we always have new people coming to the movement. I mean, just from own experience, I receive a lot of hate comments and death threats and rape threats and all of that. Thousands. I had to block my address, and it's of course it's hard, but you have your family, you have your cause, you have the people around you that all fight for the same thing. You have thousands of people that are on the street after you mobilize for a strike, and that really keeps you going.
Well, especially with all the hate that you just mentioned that you received. I mean, the unfortunate point about that is that the more hate comments you become, apparently you're really hitting the right cause or the right buttons that people go on with that. Because if you wouldn't achieve something, people wouldn't even notice you. But even though that I understand for you personally, this must be hurtful and stressful.
No, it's not.
Not at all.
It's not, because most of the comments come from far-right people. They really do. From far-right parties in Germany, from far-right people.
But they should be with you because they want to save the nation.
No, don't go on that way. Really, the fight for climate justice has to be anti-racist and anti-fascist. Point. We'll leave that here. But
okay. I just wanted to mention like the stupidity of
people that are far-right, that are national socialists, that are Nazis, when they hate me because of what I do, I've done something right, haven't I?
Yeah, but that's my point. I think sometimes I wonder if these people don't really see the irony that they want to save the nation, but apparently they like to fight those who try to save the nation, because
we don't want to save the nation. We don't want to save the people worldwide.
And that's
my
point.
We want to end worldwide exploitation. We are not fighting for the same cause.
Yeah, but that's my point. This nation cannot exist when the globe doesn't exist. Doesn't it?
I'll say it again. The fight for climate justice has to be anti-racist and anti-fascist.
I'm absolutely with you. Just to make that clear, so not get the wrong word, because sometimes like the irony doesn't really get through. But I'm just asking again.
Is she completely gone?
Oh, Claudia,
No.
Claudia, you can hear us.
I can hear you. Hopefully, you can also hear me. But
Should it be really a movement, and if so, what should be done just to achieve that, or actually keep it going?
I think it's obvious that a movement which also consists of different approaches, like in Germany, for example, we have Fridays for Future, we have Extinction Rebellion, and we also have Ende Gelände. If they would join forces, of course, they would be even stronger together. That's for sure. But I am also convinced that that's not something that can be facilitated from the outside. It has to happen from within those individual groups. And I'm not sure if it will. At the moment, it doesn't look like, but you don't know what the future might bring.
But as within the concept here of the Fashion Week, and we're really glad to have you here. I mean, what steps would you like to see the fashion community, which talks about sustainability at this point, take to support youth activists and better align itself with the SDG 13, the climate action?
Yeah, as Clara had said, I mean, the first priority is that the fashion industry, fashion and textile industries become as sustainable as possible themselves. And they are already working on that and making some progress, but of course they need to make even more progress with that. And secondly, I think that at least the fashion industry could make use of their marketing power and their power to actually influence young people and their power to also form ideas and role models, so to speak. Like what I observed, like with this whole body image discussion, for example, the fashion industry changed public awareness around body positivity by using different models and for photo shoots and for fashion shows, and they could do the same when it comes to a planetary friendly lifestyle. I think that's actually the least they can do.
As I can, probably what you can see, like Clara's already raising the hand,
Yeah.
which of course I want to add for it. Please go for it.
I can imagine what she's about to say. Like,
well, we were just curious just to hear it.
Yeah.
I think it's highly.
We have different levels of patience, I think.
No, it's fine. I'm more than seriously. I'm more than glad to be here, and this is really what this entire panel should really be about. That we keep on not only having the discussion, but really aiming for solutions. But Clara, that's the word is all yours.
I am highly critical of companies utilizing movements or political ideas to sell their products. I mean, we have seen it with feminism, the whole girl boss mentality. Oh, buy this shirt. Oh, you're such a queen. You're such a girl boss. You're such a strong woman. Buy the lipstick. You'll be even stronger. I don't like this mentality. I don't like it when real struggles for equality are exploited by companies to accumulate wealth. And the same thing is happening with the climate crisis. Buy this sneaker and you'll be more ecologically friendly. Use this tool to save the planet. I mean, the solution for saving our planet, for achieving climate justice, is not consumption of another product. But companies, of course, are trying to make us believe that it is. I mean, why would they ask activists like me, like my colleagues, to promote their products, to promote their shoes, their water bottles, their fashion lines, if it wouldn't work? And it's problematic, of course.
And what is it you would like to see for a change? I mean, you pretty much gave already like the blueprint for these kind of things, but like right now as a focus. I mean, this is also like a call also for your fellow activists not to support these causes when it's so obvious that it's just for that matter. But how would you like to differ things or to change things for the benefit for everyone?
We need legislation now. And everyone who is truly invested in changing this industry should do everything in their power to change the legislation in their country, in their state, in their city. We fought for a just supply chain law in Germany, which would make companies responsible for every part of their supply chain. We got one. It wasn't what we wanted, so basically it's useless because they basically hollowed it out until only the name was left. But you get what I mean, don't you? We need legislation that make companies responsible for every part of their supply chain, for every point of the exploitation that they cause, because it cannot be that they individualize the
cost, the movement?
Yeah, no, but they individualize the gain that is to have with the clothing, and communalize the costs. The costs on our planet, the costs on our health, on our people. That cannot be the case. They need to be held accountable.
All right. You said it therefore. As we see, we just have like 2 more minutes left. The question is, do we have any questions from the audience, or should I go back to... Oh, we got a question from the audience. Yeah, please do so. Claudia, you still with us? Because I cannot see you, but I just want to make sure you're still with us. Claudia?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, I can hear you.
I just wanted to make sure. So, because we have a question for Clara. What is your personal way? You are young. What are your next steps in education, profession? Yeah, that would be the first question for Clara. I have another one coming up for Claudia. But Clara, go ahead. Go ahead.
I am currently working on a COVID intensive care unit, so treating COVID patients. And I guess I'll study medicine after I finish working there.
By tradition, as far as I've heard. And then the question for Claudia: what amazes you most when seeing young people fighting for climate justice these days?
What amazes me most, or what amazed me most during the shooting of the film, because that might have changed. What amazed me most in 2019 was the positivity, actually. That despite how severe the situation is, they're still very positive, and as one of the activists said in our trailer, they try to walk their talk and to already live the future they would like to see, and that actually impressed me very much.
Thank you, Claudia.
And yeah.
And for the last 20 seconds, will you continue actually observing this, or is it done with the documentary? Because I understand with this kind of movement, I mean, there should be coming more.
I'm working on other films, and they are looking more into details and certain aspects of the climate and environmental topic. Like one is dealing with women in power, about female politicians on an international level, and the other one is actually looking into what actually a planetary friendly lifestyle is.
So who knows? You never know. Maybe the two of you will actually meet in person. And all I can say at this point, I'm very, very grateful for your insights. I know that this is definitely not something that you just can pump into or put it into 30 minutes or anything like that. But thank you for bringing to your attention to young leaders tackling climate change and offering your thoughts on how we can better support them. With this conversation having focused on SDG 13 climate action, we'll now be switching gears to explore issues related to gender equality and inclusive work for all as we speak with the labor rights organization founder Nazme Akter. For that matter, Claudia, dankeschön. Also dankeschön an Clara, and keep on that fight. Thank you.